Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Pyrography podcast. This particular episode will be primarily around woods that I personally find, should we say, easy to use and that create the sort of best effect for the sort of themes I do, which is obviously at the moment, the themes I do. So obviously in the past, a lot of safari. I'm trying to do a bit more British themed stuff, and apparently a few sea animals as well. Done an octopus, finished a turtle yesterday. Finished a turtle yesterday. Not too bad for a first attempt, but trying to open my horizons, shall we say, of what I'm doing. But yeah, these are the top. I've got about top 4. Most of these should be on my website. I'll put a link to the blog bit. That's sort of why I'm doing these videos. Is if you don't want to read it, then you can sort of watch it, or vice versa, or both. It's completely up to you. But so I guess just dive straight in. So my top wood, I personally find the easiest to use. Creates the best effect for sort of my sort of genre of burning, and I think I'd say it would work for most themes, whether that's sort of patterns or a bit more detailed images with sort of a background, because a lot of my work doesn't have backgrounds. It's just sort of the animal's head or the animal itself, or animals. I've obviously started opening my horizons to more than one animal, or more of one particular animal, so the 2 bears or 3 bears, 2 lions, this, that, the other, but that's not important. My personal favourite wood is Sycamore, because it is literally just like a blank canvas. I'm not going to go into the technicals about what the wood is, like its density and its softness, because personally I have to research what that means. I just want to try and keep it as basic as possible, really. The wood itself, obviously the softness of the wood is important. You don't want to get a really soft wood like standard beech. Personally, I find it's quite a soft wood for burning into. It burns quite deep, but I've only used 1 or 2 pieces, so it might have just been those pieces. But with a sycamore, it's a dense enough wood that you can burn into it, and it's nice. The grain itself is quite a forgiving grain, shall we say. It's not, you burn too deep and then you hit the grain. It's quite a nice sort of continuously smooth grain. I said I wasn't going to go technical, but I've gone into grain and density, haven't I? You sort of have to, though, I guess, don't you? I'm just going to try and keep it as basic and sort of simple and speaking English rather than technical terms. Anyway, if you can find a sycamore and you're like first starting pyrography, definitely go with a piece of sycamore. It doesn't have to be too expensive, just a nice bit of sycamore, perfect for starting. It's literally, like I said, it's a blank canvas. It's just, it's one of my favourites. It's just, at the moment, the sawmill I use, they're starting to cut it a bit thicker, I'm guessing because people need it thicker or it's easier. So I'm trying to find a way to get more sycamore and either have it cut thinner or, I don't know yet. I'm still figuring it out. Next, I would say, is a Splatted Beech. So I call it split beech because it's easier to sort of remember, and I'm not quite sure if that's actually pronounced correctly. It's the one I used for beach fight and family stroll. So it's an absolutely lovely piece of wood. It's like algae going through it and like almost rot where the wood is rotting, and it creates like a lovely marble effect. The particular piece I picked up, the reason I picked it up was because I could see the way that it's like split through the wood. It looked like a water effect. So obviously, doing family stroll, I did the reflections in the water of the bears. I always wanted to do that. I'd quite like to try that again with maybe a different animal, maybe a lion drinking, I don't know. But yeah, similar with sycamore, it's absolutely, it burns lovely. It's once obviously you've got to sand it down, because the finer you sand it, the sort of smoother the top layer is. Pretty much like sycamore, just looks a bit different. The wood's a smidge darker, and when putting protection on it, it does have a tendency to sort of not darken, but sort of create more of a blended sort of effect with the burn. I found that with Beech Fight quite a lot, was where you burn, it sort of almost smooths out the burn, but it might have just been my burn. I've only done 2 pieces, I believe, with split birch. 2, maybe 3 pieces. But yeah, I can't fault it really. Other than the bit that I got was quite thick, so it's quite heavy, but that's got nothing to do with the wood, that's just the way it's been cut. We go with tulip. So when I went to the sawmill last, come across an absolutely bit like oak, almost. It's got like an oak look to it, but yeah, it's almost like a tanned version of Sycamore, and it actually burns. It's not as sort of smooth and sort of easy to burn as Sycamore. Yeah, it's not such a smooth burn as Sycamore. You've got to put a bit more sort of time into it, sort of a bit more focus, less sort of smooth burns. So yeah, it's quite a nice wood, especially when oiling it. It creates almost like a yellow effect, which sort of brings out the pyrography a bit more. The only catch with it is it's a bit like beech, like plain beech, where when you're filing it, it can come up, like the wood can come up in a bit of like clumps, and the file sort of drag a bit and can bring it up a bit. But other than that, it's quite a nice wood. So it's just really, it's all about trial and error of wood. There are a few woods that I personally don't like that are quite good for pyrography. I'm going to get into that in a minute, but it is all about trial and error, and obviously there'll be woods that other people absolutely love and I hate. It's just personal preference, isn't it, really? So talking about woods people might love and I'm not fond of is pine. Pine is, in my opinion, the way oak is described, absolutely pain to use. I find I've only done a couple pieces with it, but yeah, the first impressions weren't great. I might come back to it a bit further down the line, but it just felt like the pen kept dipping in between each of the grains, and it was really hard to get like fine detail of like fur. But yeah, personally I find it sort of, the pen kept dipping in between, and obviously with my work being quite fine, and like I build up the layers with like smoothness, and then sort of then build up the layers of fineness, and then file over it, and then maybe burn over it again, just building up layers. Pine doesn't feel like the sort of wood to use for multiple layers. It's better for sort of single layer, whether that's sort of like tones or whatever, but I personally wouldn't use it. Now on to the offcuts. So when I first started burning, the sawmill I still go to, not as much, found one more local just for fuel and the environment. I still like to go there because they do have Sycamore, whereas the one I go to more now don't have Sycamore. I used to they had offcut boxes, so like, because they like make coffins and lots of sort of wood products, obviously they had a lot of offcuts, so I would go through the offcut box. I'll probably actually put a picture on screen somewhere of Shortbread Stag and Hairy Harry the horse. Those two were done on like offcuts, I think, because like there was like chips missing out. So when you're first starting, maybe use offcuts. Probably not best if you're trying to sort of build your confidence, but I didn't really know an awful lot when I first started. This was sort of before 2021, when I would consider myself a sort of artist in pyrography. It was sort of a hobby, sort of messing around, and then in 2021 I was like, oh, this is quite good, and sort of invested time and sort of money and effort into it, and sort of tried to make something of it. So offcuts are quite a good starting point because they're nice and cheap, but unless you know someone who can tell you what wood you're using, it's quite hard to tell sometimes between the woods. So I personally wouldn't go back to offcuts, obviously now that I know a bit more about other woods and sort of choosing wood. And also, if you know what wood you want, you can buy like big slabs of it like I do, and then cut it up to what size you need. Whereas with offcuts, you've got to buy that particular size, unless you can find a nice big offcut that you can do what you want with it. But yeah, it's not a terrible idea to use offcuts. Just at the moment, I personally wouldn't use it. But like I say, trial and error, down to personal preference, isn't it? My third least favourite, shall we say? Yeah, least favourite wood to use is plain beech. So obviously I had the split beech that was quite nice. But I found with the bits I had of beech too, they were really like soft, which is quite odd for beech. Obviously with the level of fineness in my work, primarily with the filing, I found when I was filing it was when you file in the detail, it would sort of drag the grain with it, so it would come up in really big clumps of like wood being dragged out, rather than sort of scraping a layer of the burn off. It just sort of took the wood off, which made it quite hard to get that sort of level of, or my preferred level of detail. But I'd say it's quite a nice wood to use for sort of patterns, like sort of crisscross patterns. Anyway, so now to the wood that you definitely can't use, no matter what. So you've got your plywood or / man-made wood. So that's sheets of wood that have been like glued together with like MDF in the middle, or even just sheets. It's primarily, I think they use beech, like thin sheets of beech that are glued together, and then you can buy sort of different depths. They are not woods to use for pyrography because the wood's so thin and they're like obviously glued together. Once you get through the top layer, you're then burning into glue, and then the fumes obviously make toxic fumes that can cause it could probably get into your bloodstream and cause brain damage, but it'll just create like long-term health problems, obviously your lungs, or just general health problems. So definitely stay away from, don't burn plywood. It's one of the worst woods to use. And I found out, this did take a bit of research because I wanted to check a few things out. Driftwood is quite dangerous as well, due to it being obviously soaked in salt water, and it'll create like a chlorine gas, which obviously is not good for your health at all, and is very carcinogenic. But you're burning wood is a bit carcinogenic. That's why obviously wear your face mask, but obviously a face mask can only do so much, and obviously you should really have the room ventilated as best as possible. But I would have thought you don't want really bad fumes. Obviously wood fumes aren't great, but chlorine fumes are a lot worse. So you just want to reduce as much harmful gases and chemicals in the air as possible, don't you? And that's all I'm going to sort of go through at the moment. That's sort of the woods I use, the woods I don't use, and then obviously the woods I would advise. I'm saying don't use for health reasons. But if anyone has any woods that they use, I'd love to hear, because I'm always looking to sort of try new woods, not for any particular reason, just sort of interest. And also there are a few woods I would like to try from my sawmill, and obviously if anyone's got any advice on any woods, then yeah, I'd love to hear. I hope this video was helpful. I probably haven't done it justice, but if you want to pop over to the website and look at the blog page for wood, I'll put the link in the description, or you could just head straight over to the website. It's up to you. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Cheers.